The new plantation mindset and 4 steps to break your chains. Yes, you heard that right. You're still on the plantation. They just gave you a paycheck and some Wi-Fi. They took the chains off your wrist and put them on your mind. You think you're free because you can choose your job, but you're still stuck in a system that profits off of your dependency. So in this video, we're going to go over the plantation mindset, where it stems from, how it's affecting us today, and 4 steps to break your chains. Because like I said, knowledge doesn't become wisdom until it meets practical application. Damn, I ain't mean to erase my chains. I hope y'all understood what that was supposed to be. So where does the new plantation mindset come from? By new plantation, I mean post-slavery. So we know slavery was abolished in 1865. But by 1865, America had already built itself up on the backs of slaves and was the only country completely sustained off of unpaid labor. So in 1865, when these slaves became free, the economy was in a panic. So they had to come up with a plan. What way can we put them on a new style plantation? So what did they do? The first thing they did, because you got to remember, at this point, black people were not even considered humans yet. So from 1865 to 1870, only 4% of African Americans were employed. 4%. So if only 4% are employed, what are the rest of them doing to get money? Sharecropping. Now, if you're like me, you was taught in school that after slavery, ex-free slaves began basically turned into farmers. But no, that's not the case. Sharecropping was when between 1865 and 1870, there were no one hiring black people, so they basically went back to the same exact plantations they were freed from. They went back to those plantations, and instead of working as slaves, they got to work as sharecroppers. What that really means is they were working on those same plantations, but they were still not getting paid, and what they were compensated with is where the term 40 acres and a mule comes from. But in fact, they didn't get 40 acres. Most of them got about 20 acres and a mule. And their responsibility with this land was to farm it out for crops, and they were in exchange, they only got to keep 50% of the crops. They got no money, they got no living quarters, and they only got to keep 50% of their crops. And then all the equipment that they used was leased out to them the same way they do now, high-ass interest rates, so they could not go into the town and just sell the crops because they still be underwater. They still be head over heels in debt. And you can't leave. That's the thing about sharecropping. You can't leave the plantation until you finish your sentence, until you finish your term. So basically they signed themselves up for slavery again because they had no other option. But after sharecropping, in 1868, when the 14th Amendment was passed, they had to move from sharecropping to a way that now, since black people are viewed as humans, we have to find another way to exploit them for their labor without paying them. That's when they came up with black codes. Black codes were laws put in place deliberately to detain black people. Why would they want to detain black people? Because still at that time, if you were detained, just like in the prison industrial complex of today, if you were detained, you could be sold to a plantation until your sentence is over. So once again, they were trying to find another way to recreate the wheel, another way to reinforce slavery. So they had black codes that made it illegal to be unemployed. If you were found unemployed, you would be thrown in jail and sold to a plantation. Or you have to find these very low-paying labor contracts. And these low-paying labor contracts gave you just enough to survive. just enough to come back to work the next week. They were not getting anything that they could build their generational wealth with, nor were they given any time. Because if you were unemployed, you would literally go to jail. So once that kind of got played out and black people said, okay, I'm gonna start building a business. I'm gonna become a business owner. What did they put in place? Jim Crow laws. Now, again, if you were like me, you were taught that Jim Crow was, I don't know, around the civil rights era, right before they started civil rights. No. Jim Crow started in the 1800s and lasted to the 1960s. So during this time, now, since we can't just throw you in jail anymore, because some of you guys are trying to start businesses, we're going to completely separate the black and the white dollar. What does this do to destroy us? Well, no black people have any jobs. I told you in 1870, only 4% of black people had jobs. So if no black people have any jobs, the ones that do are signed to these low-paying labor contracts, or they're slaving themselves out as sharecroppers. Who's going to support the black businesses? What money are they going to generate? So, and I know this is a problem, but we can't vote it away because we didn't have voting rights at the time. If you were to rebel or to protest, you would literally get lynched. They would literally kill your entire family. So there's nothing you could literally do at this time except keep the same mindset as a slave. I'm just going to keep my head down and work and try to work my way out of this. The same thing that we say today. So how does this mindset affect us today? I'll show you. Before I get into that, have y'all seen Sinners? Like honestly, I keep hearing mixed reviews, and it's not really the type of movie I would normally watch, but I do want to support it. You know, it's a black director, black lead, stuff like that, but is it worth it? Like, let me know, is it actually worth my time? But the new plantation mindset of 2025 looks something like this. A 9 to 5. That's the first aspect of the new plantation mindset. How do you figure? No, I'm not shitting on people who work a 9 to 5. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting an honest living. I work one. But I'm telling you that just like in sharecropping, just like in the black codes, just like in the time of Jim Crow laws, they allow black people to make just enough to come back to work. Just enough to pay your bills, feed yourself, and make it back to work. That's all they give us, just like today. All they give us. And if you think I'm lying, over 65% of Americans have less than $2,000 to their name. Over 65%. That's not just black people, that's the entire country. So if over 65% don't have $2,000, if I don't know about y'all, but that's about 1 month of living expenses. If that. So how is everybody having less than $2,000 but putting that shit on Instagram? Because of the next aspect of the new slave mindset. Consumerism. They teach us now to value consumerism over equity. Value the accumulation of liabilities over assets. Not to throw anyone under the bus, but there's a TikTok creator who's saving towards a Hellcat. He saved $20,000 in 30 days. $20,000 in 30 days. That's remarkable. I commented to him. I said, man, this is great. I'm very proud of you. But what about putting that money towards something that's an asset, like a house or a business? Because literally, with $20,000 in good credit, you can get an SBA loan and purchase a business that will give you the money for a Hellcat. But not him, but someone in the comments told me that purchasing a house is not an asset. A house is not an asset until you own it for 30 years. Who gave us this backwards ass mentality? The same people who are buying all the houses. The same people who want us stuck in the process of consumerism. You mean to tell me a house is not an asset, but a car that would be worth less than 50% of its value in 30 days is? We have to wake up. And the next reason why we're stuck in this new slave, new plantation mindset is the fear of entrepreneurship. Black people have an absolute fear towards being entrepreneurs. That's why you keep hearing this divisive talk, such as anytime someone says they want to start a business, oh, that's that Gen Z shit. Everybody want to just be an entrepreneur. Nobody going to put their nose down and work. No, because entrepreneurship is not Gen Z shit, it's revolutionary. Entrepreneurship is how we take the black dollar back by producing income in our community, for our community, by our community. That's how we become self-sufficient and self-sustaining once again. But we have a genuine fear of entrepreneurship. Everyone teaches their children, go to college, get a job, work the system. Nothing wrong with working the job, like I said, but it's not the way that other people think. It's not the way that we can free ourselves. But I know why we have this way, why we think this way, why we fear getting the entrepreneurship role, why we're stuck in a 9-to-5 job. Scientists have discovered that trauma can be passed down genetically through DNA, generation to generation, meaning that the trauma of your ancestors literally can be passed down to you. So that means the low self-worth, the despising successful people, thinking that anybody who has money must be evil, must be doing something wicked, or the mindset that loving everyone but yourself, looking outside of the black community for wealth, for help, for leadership, that all comes from genetic trauma that we were taught during the age of sharecropping, during the age of black codes, during the age of Jim Crow, where there was no benefit to being an entrepreneur. There was no benefit to trying to think outside the box. If you didn't have a job, you'd be thrown in jail and sold to slavery. So it makes sense then, but why does it make sense now? Romans 12:2 tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. To be literally transformed. How can we be transformed if we're not renewing our mind? If we're still stuck in the mindset of the 1870s, we're still stuck in the 1960s, how can we be renewed? What does that look like for us? The first step is learning about financial literacy. I literally mean financial literature, getting books about finances. That's the first step to freeing yourself. And like I said, genetic trauma. People think, oh, black people just don't like to read just to be funny or like we're all dumb. No, black people don't like to read per se because they were literally killed before for opening books. If you were caught knowing how to read, they would cut your tongue out. They would cut your hands off because it was that important to them to not let us wake up. So I don't blame you for not reading, but I'm going to be the first one to tell you, there's no one else coming for you. You have to open a damn book. You have to Get Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Psychology of Money, all these type of books that will teach you about credit, teach you about finances, teach you about budgeting, teach you about good saving versus bad saving, teach you about assets versus liabilities. These things are in books. They're not taught to us in school for a reason. And when you dive head first into them books, it's going to inevitably lead you to the next step. Entrepreneurship. And when I say you need a side hustle, I don't mean something that's trading time for money. I mean something that you can create or produce one time and sell multiple times. I mean something that you would do for free, or that even better, something you already do for free that you know people would pay to watch, people would pay to see, people would pay to have this in their home. Something that is natural to you, naturally occurring, free flowing, and it just comes when you understand yourself. You take time to reflect on yourself and break down your values. Break down what you like, what you want out of life, and find a way to make them align. And once we become entrepreneurs and we take back the black dollar, we'll have more buying power, which will lead us to do the third step. Entrepreneurship. Once you start producing real money, you'll value your money. And when you value it, you have to own assets, not liabilities. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves behind inheritance for his children's children, while the money of a sinner goes directly into the hand of the righteous. Meaning, the people who are thinking about ownership and who are thinking about entrepreneurship instead of consumerism, those are the people where all the black dollar goes to. But if we start becoming those entrepreneurs and we start buying real estate, we start buying land, we start buying businesses, assets over liabilities, we will become financially empowered as a community. And becoming financially empowered as a community gives you the ability to make real change, to affect policies and governments in real world application. Then the fourth step, which is honestly the most important step, and they all lead directly to it, Ujamaa. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a Swahili term. It's also one of the 7 pillars of Kwanzaa. What it means essentially is investing in business for the community, by the community. Which means once we have all this money and we're buying this land, we're buying these properties, let's pull our money together. Let's lift up each other instead of looking for outside resources, government assistance, other programs to help us. Let's help each other. Let's empower our community by building investment pools. If you got 5 friends, instead of trying to build a business on your own, I know you have 5 like-minded friends who want to be successful, who want to escape this circulatory loop, this game that we're stuck in, and elevate their life. And if you don't, you need to find better friends. So find that friend group who's willing to invest, willing to put in a couple $100s every month, or willing to open 5 LLCs. That's 5 rounds of business funding, and we can pull together and start something special for our family, for our children's children, as the Bible tells us to do. So it's time for us to wake up. Nobody's going to do it for us. It's time for us to emancipate ourselves from the mental slavery. It's time for us to realize that we built this country with nothing. So imagine what we'll do when we have something. Imagine what we'll do when the black dollar means something. But it starts with you first. No one's going to come do it for us.